This is a video that I've tried to record about 4 times now, and I've always been kind of on the fence of I want to continue and actually like do the video on it, or if instead maybe it's too negative of a topic to have on my channel, or is this kind of the content creator that I want to be. But at the same point in time, I think that this is an issue that is more systemic to the player base than I think a lot of people realize, because this has to deal with directly the new blood incoming to the game. So through a game's life cycle, you'll have an initial batch of players, and this initial batch of players, you're going to have some players that are going to continue on, and you're going to have a lot of the players eventually like quit for other games, such as they might go to Destiny 2, they might go to Overwatch, they might have gone to Fallout, who knows. But the fact of the matter is, you still need to have a new influx of players, and in Final Fantasy XIV, we call these sprouts. And so this is a topic that I actually do want to cover in a bit of good depth. I am actually going to stick and be resolute to actually completing this video in spite of being a little anxious to do it. Let's talk about the mentor system, and let's talk about it and the realities of it. So Final Fantasy XIV has had 2 launches. A lot of players know this, but a lot of players who are new to the game may have utterly no idea and may be like, what do you mean it's launched twice? For Final Fantasy XIV, it was released as 1.0 version 2010, September 30th of 2010. And so this was met with a lot of issues. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It had fundamentally core flaws to the game that made it extremely prohibitive to both the most hardcore players as well as the newer players. In fact, one of the common issues that was kind of mocked and memed was how a bush would literally like lag out people to like just high heavens. It was actually kind of funny. I look back and I shouldn't laugh, but at the same point in time, I mean, it's funny. There was fundamental issues with the game, and we were bleeding players at an extremely rapid rate. There is no way to otherwise say it. There were lots of negative reviews, there's a huge stigma attached to the game, and that stigma has carried on even up until Shadowbringers. You still see people say, oh, I always heard that this game was really bad. What this means, and why this is related to the mentor system, is because a lot of us, myself included, as one of the first batch of the player base, we made the decision that we were going to help people to stay to this game as much as we possibly could. We would give items, we would give time, we would mentor people. And by the way, the mentor system never existed at this time, so we were given it for completely free, expecting nothing in return. We were trying to form a community, because you know what, the game was fundamentally flawed, but you know what we had community, we had love, we had a passion, and we had a soul, and we really wanted to see things succeed. Unfortunately for all of us, as both a surprise and a non-surprise, the servers went down. Really didn't know if the game was going to come back. I'm just going to be honest. It was a little bit of a terrifying time. You would see large groups of people go and be just lost, and we were just like, oh my god, so we failed, and that felt really bad. Lo and behold, we did get announced, hey, this game is actually going to be relaunched and rebooted as A Realm Reborn. And then lo and behold, August 24th, 2013, the game came back as A Realm Reborn. And we had the same core community of me and many of the other bigger content creators. It's kind of funny because if I started a YouTube channel at that time, boy, would things be different than they are right now. But you had me along with some of these big names now in the community. Of course, I'm not going to say who, but we were really close, and we were like, holy crap, we get another chance to actually turn things around. We get a chance to make a community anew. And so a lot of us banded together, and we were just like, hey, we're gonna teach people how to do this, we're gonna make guides, we're gonna make videos, we're gonna make like podcasts, we're gonna try and do all that we can to make sure that this succeeds, that we actually form a community. Realm Reborn launched, and while you can look back, and hindsight is always 20/20, right? We actually were able to make communities, and we were actually able to get the game's reputation of having a positive, a supportive, and a loving community that you were welcome in. We managed to get that reputation going. And this was all before the mentor system. So now with the background kind of covered, I want to go into the current issues that we face. First off, I was thinking about like, do I want to show actual in-game chat logs? Do I want to take video recordings of like just laying there on my alt in the novice network? Or what do I want to do? So chat is not going to be shown in this video. I'm not going to name and shame, and I'm not going to lead into any kind of drama like that. That's not the point of this video. I don't want that to be the point of this channel. That will never be the point of this channel. But at the same point in time, novice network chat is filled with spoilers. It's filled with a lot of one-upmanship. will see two people bickering on and on and on and on in the chat, literally spamming it just with a complete argument over something that is almost a non-factor and will not help a lot of people. It has become less of a resource for people to use, and it has become more of essentially posturing, a lot of ego contest, and a lot of like, I'm right, you're wrong, you're bad, and look at how great I am, and look at how lowly you are. It's definitely become a lot of posturing, and it is, in retrospect, a little intimidating to newer players. But as I said, I don't want you to I don't want to show chat logs, but you know what, I am going to take statements that I have seen on Reddit and quote some people. You see Milky Hana saying, I saw a mentor bragging about being an orange parser in the 10 minutes I looked at it today. I promptly left after. The NN actually had more mentors than novices at 60 out of 20. I'm not saying that word. Wonder if that's the kind of lame they talk about. Orange parser, what is that? And people upload logs of endgame braids to FF logs to check DPS and a bunch of other metrics. FF logs uses color coding to compare your stats against other people playing the same job as you. Orange is the top 5% players for that class of that particular encounter. Likewise, you look at that and you're just like, why is orange parsing and FF logs being actively shown in a channel to help new players? It doesn't really make sense. Another person, Vikathor, said, yes, free from the nightmare of inconsiderate people having expansion spoiler discussions when you're still going through a Realm Reborn. And honestly, I think that that's probably one of the biggest killing points of this entire thing, is it's like you have a story-based MMORPG, and then you have masterpieces like the Heaven's Ward expansion, now Shadowbringers expansion. If you have people, literally the newest of the new players, join this chat, and you're spamming them with spoilers, you're literally destroying the game for them. And I think that that shows a lot of the ignorance and lack of care. I have also had very similar experiences when I leveled up in alt, but I can attest when I did say, see all of this in the mentor chat, even trolling of new players to the point where even I had to speak up. They were intentionally misguiding people. And for the record, I don't like participating in public chats in general just because of anxiety. It's not a fun thing for me, so I just generally don't. So yeah, I think that number one thing is that the mentor chat is fundamentally flawed. It's just you are literally the gatekeepers to the newer players. You are literally the gatekeepers, and yet you are spamming all this stuff and literally ruining the game experience for them. And I think that that's actually really tragic if you think about it, because it's just you have all this new blood coming into the game, as I said before. These are going to be the players that help the game keep going. You cannot maintain a game off of a degrading existing player base, because people will leave to other games. People will put it on hiatus. People will finish the current Savage content, and then they'll play another game until the next Savage content. I know many friends of mine that do that, and so you need this new blood. And their impressions, their experiences are so pivotal to the life of the game. And unfortunately, they're getting jerked around just in the chat. And then they're going to take that negative experience and be like, oh, the community's toxic. And it's unfortunate. Well, it's fortunate that all the effort that me and so many others did, it's obvious that our effort showed. The community still has a good reputation, but you are definitely seeing through the cracks a lot of how things are degrading. And it's very clear that the community has had a bit of, it's changed, and I can't say for the better. I mean, it's gone larger, and of course you're going to have a little bit more of the negative and vocal minority of negative people, but at the same point in time, these are also going to be the vocal minority that are interacting with your new players who are turning them off the game. Next thing I want to talk about is the Burger King crown. And yeah, I am going to call it the Burger King crown, because that is just what me and a lot of my friends call it, and that is honestly what it's become. It's kind of become a meme, and people can be like, oh, but you're exaggerating. I wish I was. So I have 3,500 commendations currently in game. I like to think that I'm not completely brain dead. I use FF logs, not that I'll ever put it in one's face, and I have definitely had, unfortunately on multiple occasions, someone with one of these Burger King crowns go after me in just one of these random expert roulettes or something, or a random normal trial. They'll be like, oh, do you even know how to tank, blah blah blah, your parse is so low, blah blah blah. Or oh my god, even more embarrassingly, I think it was Dune Skaith, just one of those 24-man raids, and I was just getting flayed in Alliance chat by this one person, because honestly at the time I was going through like a very negative thing, and I was not doing well, and I was dying to mechanics on Monk, and this person was just going after me, like they were ripping into me, and I'm like, oh my god. And then you look at them and you see they have a Burger King crown, and you're like, oh. So in terms of like this, I think that there is a lot of prestige to do with this, and I think that having a crown near your name is something that these people definitely go for. And I think that this is absolutely something that needs to change. It's just like, why do you need a crown to signal that you help people? It's just like, it sounds really nice, like, oh yeah, I'm the king of helping people or whatever. Does that even make sense? But my point is, like, why is it not a watering can? I mean, you have Sprouts, and like, why does it have to be a crown? I mean, you get people just wanting it for the pure ego of it, just for the prestige. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't look at titles of people anymore. I just don't pay attention to that stuff anymore. Unless it's a Sprout icon, I really don't care. And likewise, if it's a Sprout, as I said at like the start of the video, I'm gonna like bend over backwards to make sure, hey, that I accommodate them and that it's like I help them out. It's just like, even like a few weeks ago, there was someone who was brand new to the game, who's super into the housing system. Like, they were just like, oh my god, I saw the housing system stuff that you did, and this is really awesome, and I'm really wanting to get involved in it. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the housing system, I can't just give them a small plot or a medium plot or a large plot. Heck, I want a large plot. But I did give them, however, enough gil that they could get an apartment in one of the districts. And I can't remember which one they chose at this point. It's been a little while, and I'm just trying to focus on the mentor system. But point is, I gave them the gil, I set them up with that, and that was a really good feel good. Just like, why do I do the guide videos? Is it because of fame? I mean, no, I'm not gonna be famous for this. Oh my god, no. It's because I genuinely like to help. And so I definitely think that a lot of people are in it for the absolute wrong reasons, and it's just like, why do you need a crown to do this? I don't get it. And then I kind of want to have a controversial topic. And this is probably actually one of the main reasons I really did not want to do this video, is because we do have a mentor system update that was announced on October 3rd. You have now a few cute things, like you have PvP mentors are different than PvE mentors. Although that distinction is useful, you have a huge difference between a tank, a healer, and a DPS still in all of those. And even between melee DPS to range DPS to caster DPS, the difference between each play style, and I can attest to this because I've played all the classes to 80 in like Savage Raids and that, it is a very steep difference, and so I don't know if it's necessarily the best classification to go by that, but I digress. The main important thing is that they're changing the commendations from 300 to 1500, and so that is a roughly 5 times. So that is a 5 times more commendations are needed. And so a little bit about commendations, if you aren't really familiar with them, or you're new to Final Fantasy XIV or just interested in this for research purposes, is basically at the end of a round you can give one and only one player a commendation. This player is just generally going to be someone who made your experience really good in that dungeon or raid or whatever, and you wanted to be like, hey, thanks for this. Boop. And so basically that's a vote of confidence in that player's ability to make people happy and be like, you made a positive impact on my game, here you go. And so basically it's like, yeah, if you have enough commendations at some point, you can generally attest to being like, hey, I've made a positive impression on people. I think that one thing that a lot of people overestimate is if you're a healer, you get commendations. That is not really true, because I can tell you that some days when I'm down and I'm not really DPSing on my healer in like an expert roulette, I'll get flat out no commendations. And I deserve none. As well as there's been movements to like commendate DPS more and all this stuff. Dancers, I personally always commendate a dancer that buffs me no matter what. I know, is that a little biased? Yes, but I don't care. They increased my DPS, so I'm gonna commendate them. Hello, superficial, but true. But in terms of it, essentially when you get enough of them, enough votes of confidence, you can be sure, kind of a little more confident that, hey, this person actually is capable and like helps people and leaves a good impression. And so with 1500, that means you have had 1500 people say, hey, you really made a difference to me, and I really care about your efforts, and thank you. And so ultimately that adds up. Also, I should say about the commendation system, no, if you're in a pre-made party with someone, you can't commendate them. And so this is literally from random people that you probably don't know, commendating specifically you, being like, you made a difference to me, I don't know you probably, and thank you for existing. And so it's a good vote of like things being good. And let's suppose that if you're tanking or healing, that 1/3 of your commendations out of this 1500 are just because you were playing the right role at the right time and tickled someone's fancy. Okay, you still have 1,000 votes of confidence from 1,000 different players that were not pre-made with this person saying you made a difference to me. And so I think that this is a step in the right direction. There is limits to this though, because it's just like, what if someone only plays healers or only plays DPS or only plays tanks? Should they really just be like a general PvE mentor? Or what kind of mentor are they? And that's a lot of things about mentoring, is that it goes a lot further than just like battle classes. It goes into stuff like, do you know where this is on this map? Or do you know how to run maps? Do you know how to run expert roulettes? Do you know where this quest goes? Do you know how this job crystal works? Do you know how this gear works? What does this materia do? How do I get this? How do I farm that? Like, you get my point. Like, it goes much further than actual combat. It goes actually into like kind of like more game knowledge stuff. And I mean, people can argue, oh, but you can just Google it. Yeah, you can if you are that kind of player. And let's be honest, if you're even watching this YouTube video, you're not a normal player. You are much more dedicated than like the normal casual person that's just like, oh, this has Final Fantasy, let's pop it into my PS4 and be like, yay, Final Fantasy. Like, a lot of people just don't do that. They're not gonna like spend hours and hours Googling and researching like, this is the perfect best in slot and this is the theory crafted stuff and this is perfect. They're just not gonna do it. So in reality, the mentor system is kind of like their go-to, and that's what it's meant to be. That chat that I was just talking about with all that posturing, the trolling, and the story spoilers, that's going to be their first go-to. And so is necessarily having 1,500 commendations going to make you a good mentor in this? No. It's just like, even if I look at myself, I don't know much about the map system at all. Like, you have like the maps that you can get like all these special drops in, I can't even remember all of them, but it was like one time like Alamegan Weave was one of them, you had Holy Linen was another, and other stuff like that. I only know it because I craft with it. But the flip side is just like, is that really enough? And in my opinion, no. I don't even know how I'd do it. Maybe you do a testing system, because general game knowledge is important. And then actually like kind of reeling it back, maybe it'd be good to vet these players and be like, hey, you just said a really toxic thing, or you issued story spoilers in the mentor chat, so we're actually unfortunately going to have to revoke your privileges to be a mentor. And I think that that is actually something that needs to be done at this point, and that's not something that I'm really proud in saying, because it's just like, oh yeah, let's start pruning people who supposedly want to help. But at the same point in time, if you're going to say Shadowbringer spoilers in the middle of mentor chat with a bunch of new players, I don't think you really belong there. And I know that's a bold statement and that's a negative statement, but it's just like, you literally destroyed like the experience of probably one person at least, just because like you decide to like have a huge discussion on Shadowbringer spoilers in that chat, instead of like making your own link shell or like any of the other like avenues to talk. But at the same point in time, what would you do to change this? I don't really know of a perfect way to do this, because it's just like, even me, as someone who was there during 1.0, who was there during A Realm Reborn's relaunch and all of this stuff, who was actively engaging with the community, who was feeding information about my class to other content creators at the time, who was doing all this stuff and handing out tons of gil, doing so much, I never have been a mentor in this game. Not once, not even once. So how would newer players know to message Cole Sovereign on Gilgamesh? They wouldn't. And so this is literally their first barrier to get help. And it's just, it puts me even in a kind of compromised position. It's just like, should I be joining this system? Because I do have some knowledge in some areas of this game that I'm very confident in. And I have gone well over even the new required commendations. And I know that a lot of people do turn to me for advice and help and like gil and that kind of stuff. And like, do I help them? Absolutely. But how would they know? And so so you have these people voluntarily go into the system, whether it's for awards or whatever else, or Burger King crowns. It's, the fact of the matter is, it is getting people, and it's very necessary that you have the people there willing to help, and that you incentivize them somehow. So That being said, I don't know what the perfect way going forward would be. Personally, I'm thinking maybe having some kind of like general game knowledge exam rather than commendations, because it's just like, it's obvious that commendations is a good vote of you being capable on Disciple of whatever the combat class is. It's definitely a good show on that, but at the flip side, it's not saying that you know how to do like maps or whatever else, and so it's just like not really a good test of that. And so maybe you're just like, hey, I want to be a maps mentor, and then you take like a little quiz on that. Mind you, knowing people who would probably have all of the answers listed out somewhere on some Google spreadsheet that gets shared around and be like, oh, press A for this answer, press B for that answer. And so people could technically get around that too. So I don't think that that would even be a perfect system either. I'm really not sure how I'd fix this, but what I can say is that the mentor system absolutely has flaws, and I wish that I was sensationalizing it, but I can tell you there's lots of friends of mine in game who have come to me saying that the mentor system experiences have been extremely bad. Like, they have been given spoilers on that. I just showed the Reddit posts from people who I have unfortunately not had the chance to meet in game who said similar. And I have had similar experiences on myself when I was on my alt. So what would I do? I really don't know. The fact of the matter is, I think that we are taking a step in the right direction by having 5 times the number of commendations there. So you're going to need 5 times the number of people to vouch and say you're good. But at the same point in time, there are players with like 300 commendations that know way more about map system than I ever will. Or there's players that have like 200 commendations that might be really insanely good Savage Raiders, or might be extremely good at tanks. And I think that this still doesn't address issues such as we should have more active silencing in the chat if you're using story spoilers, or if you're doing one-upmanship. And I think that the Burger King crown needs to be turned into a watering can or something else, like a fertilizer. Could you imagine if they had a sack of side as fertilizer? Yeah, there's your Burger King crown for you. But oh god, should I edit that out or should I leave that in? I don't know. But anyhow, this is just my thoughts and opinions, and this is really not an issue that I know an answer to, and this is probably why I've been ruminating over this video for so long and being like, should I do this, should I not? But it's just like, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think that this is actually a system that is good? Yeah, or do you think that new players should have some kind of alternative? How would you test new mentors or existing ones? And do you think that the commendation system's fair? Like, I see it being generally a bit better, but I see the drawbacks too. It's just like, as I said, 300 player commendations on a player, but they know maps. It's just like, why couldn't they be a map mentor? And then we get into like the minutia of that, but anyhow. Let me know your thoughts down below, because truly I want to have a discussion on this, because I think that this is actually one of the biggest issues impacting Final Fantasy XIV right now. And while currently, yeah, are we doing great? Oh my god, Shadowbringers expansion blew up, and that's so good. But at the same point in time, cockiness and being confident leads to failure, and pride comes before a fall. So I think that this is actually something that we should be discussing very seriously, unfortunately. So that is all for this video, and I actually have some new content that I'm going to be trying out a bit later. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And if you want to help support me, any likes, comments, subscribes, and all that would be super duper appreciated. Anyhow, time for me to get editing.